Alright, so now we have pretty much all of the basic functions of HTML down. You know how to put text, images, and links on your site, and all things considered, that's pretty much all you need to put content on a page. But it's gonna look pretty haphazard if you just throw all this stuff together on a site without thinking about how you want the page structured. Today we're going to be talking about all of these tags. Don't worry, I know that amount looks overwhelming, but I'm gonna tell you a secret. Functionally speaking, in terms of everything that these tags do, they are all the same. Their function is to separate your website into various sections. A div tag and a nav tag both do the same thing. Tell the code that anything inside of them is in its own section and should be treated as separate from everything else above or below them in the website. This is important, separating everything into its own section, as it makes formatting everything later a lot easier. So if all of these tags, or at least most of them, do the same thing, what's the point of using them? Semantics. Strictly speaking, a semantic tag is just a tag that gives you an idea of the content contained therein. We've actually gone over several semantic tags already, stuff like the address tag, the site tag, or the quotation tag. All they do, functionally, is italicize the text, or add quotation marks around it. But all of those tags will tell you exactly what sort of stuff is contained between them. If we put an address or a citation in an emphasis tag, it's gonna still italicize it, but we won't be able to tell at a glance when reading the code exactly what the content of that tag is supposed to be. We don't have context. So that's why the semantic tags are important. They're meant for legibility, accessibility, and search engines, as it makes it much easier to read your code or catalog your web pages if you make it clear what each section is meant to contain. You could organize an entire website using nothing but div tags, meaning division, if you really wanted to, but telling what section is supposed to be what can be a bit of a nightmare there. And when you actually start applying CSS, it can generally be a lot easier to tell what everything is and where you want certain formatting applied if you're smart about the semantic tags you've used. Build your navigation bar using the nav tag, for example. Headers and footers should always go at the top and bottom of the site, respectively. The aside tag is meant to be used to make a sidebar on the left or right of the main content. None of these tags will apply any sort of special formatting, and technically can be placed anywhere you want in the page's hierarchy. But here's a quick visualization, courtesy of W3 Schools, to show how most of these tags are used after formatting is applied. Basically where each section of the site should end up, relatively speaking. Again, you could just use the div tag for all of these if you really wanted to, but it'd be a lot more confusing for someone who has no familiarity with how you've written your code. The other big non-semantic tag is the span tag. Span is used in conjunction with CSS, usually inline CSS, or CSS that is written directly in the HTML document tags. Don't worry about it, we'll get to it later, I promise. To style small sections of text on their own. Sure, it is flexible, but it doesn't tell you at a glance what is inside it. And even the way you format a span tag doesn't make it instantly apparent what you're using it for. You should also note the fact that, while they're both non-semantic tags, div and span are very different in that a div is a block element, and a span is an inline element. This is another important thing to keep in mind for organization, so let's go over it real quick as well. All tags can be broken into block and inline tags. A block tag is an element that will always start on a new line and will always take up the full width of a web page if it can. Not only are most section tags like div, header, footer, article, and the section tag itself block tags, but so are ones like paragraph, block quote, and address tags as well. Think of them as tags that will encompass and affect big blocks of your web page. Inline, by contrast, are elements that don't start on a new line and will only take up as much space as is necessary to do their job, so it always stays in whatever line it is in. A lot of formatting tags are inline, things like emphasis, strong, span, citation, and link tags. This isn't going to come up much since it's fairly self-explanatory given these rules, what is block and what is inline, but it is something to keep in mind when you, again, start working with CSS, where you can actually force some sections of the website to break these rules and act against their designation if you really want to. For now though, I feel that is plenty of time spent on this subject. I know that we didn't go over the tags themselves that much in detail, but again, their uses are self-explanatory, and in terms of function, they won't do much different from one another until you start throwing on some outside formatting. And believe it or not, we are actually getting close to starting on that. But we're going to go over a few more basic topics for organization before we start learning about how to really add some flair to your website. Until then, keep circulating the links, and I'll see you next time. Oh, and if you're interested, I am going to link to that W3 Schools thing that I mentioned earlier, which will give you a better idea of what kind of section tags to use for what part of the website. Okay, bye.